Ladies and gentlemen, Magnus Carlsen is about to play Hikaru Nakamura in this video. And Hans Niemann is going to be in it as well. It's everything you could have ever asked for. It's the final day of the Freestyle Chess Grand Slam event in Las Vegas, Nevada. The third of 5 here in 2025. Magnus, Hikaru, and Hans have all made it to another set of final matches, just like they did in the Speed Chess Championship in 2024. Hans Niemann is playing Levon Aronian for the first and second place crown. Magnus and Hikaru are playing for who's the greatest loser. They're playing for the third place spot. In the way they did the format, the winner of the loser's bracket does not play the winner of the winner's bracket, so that's fine. That's how they did it. I'm going to show you some games. We have Magnus, Hikaru. They put on some unbelievable chess. And we have Hans versus Levon. Levon looking to complete one of the best runs in quite some time, knocking out Magnus, Hikaru, and Hans Niemann of the same tournament, basically. So we're going to kick things off in this game between Magnus and Hikaru. Magnus opens with pawn to f3. And we have pawn to f6. e4, e5. It's a very strange position. Because, and by the way, they're not playing 10-minute chess. It's 30 minutes. 30 minutes, 30 seconds bonus time. So, for the first 4 moves, Hikaru completely copies Magnus. White can castle this way or this way. If you're, again, wondering why the back row of pieces are shuffled, they randomly select the position at the beginning of the game. That's why it's called freestyle, because they're freestyling. Magnus plays knight g3, Hikaru plays queen f7. It's such a fascinating conversation, silent, they're not actually talking to each other, about where these pieces are going to go. And which way both sides are going to castle, what squares are important in the position to fight for. Queen f2. All right. Now, Hikaru has the option to continue to copy. He says, okay. It's a totally symmetrical position after some 6 moves. Now, knight e3 by Magnus, and now you can't go knight e6. You can't go knight e6 because the queen needs to protect the pawn, and by putting the knight here, the queen would be blocked. That would not work. So castles, castles, and Hikaru decides to play knight to f4. So far, I would actually argue, Hikaru has played a nearly flawless position. The bishops are on 2 squares where they don't really have to go anywhere. The bishops are powerful just by existing. Just by standing on their squares, they are participating in the game. The knight could go to e6 at a later moment. This knight has ideas to go everywhere in the white position, even ideas like bishop h3, pressuring the pawn, and if pawn takes, of course, you have a fork. Magnus goes rook d1, king h8. Sorry, I skipped ahead a couple of moves. I don't know why. I just got really excited for Hikaru's king h8, which you're going to see in a little bit. Hikaru takes on d4 first. That is because the bishops are now open. Magnus takes back. Now Hikaru plays knight e6. The knight guards the knight. The queen no longer guards the pawn, but it doesn't matter because that knight guards the pawn, and it's also guarded by that pawn. Bishop c2. Rook d8, centralizing, defending. Bishop b3, putting pressure. And now king h8. It's very clear Magnus is going for some sort of plan against black center, but it's actually Hikaru who has a perfectly optimal setup. These pieces are beautifully positioned. This bishop is not that strong. And this bishop is a little blocked as well. Now Hikaru goes a5. So both guys decide it's better if they get off of the diagonal of the B bishop, right? That B bishop, BB, right? They don't want the king fighting there. a4, and now b6. And Hikaru's got a more pleasant position. His bishops in the long run will come out. His central stronghold is very good. And this square that he has managed to occupy in Magnus's territory is very annoying. If Magnus goes to f5, Hikaru will kick him out immediately and not let him sit there. So Magnus trades. Hikaru, stronghold in the middle of the board. Magnus goes back to e2. Hikaru removes his knight because the next one is arriving. Throughout the early part of this game, Hikaru maintained a powerful time advantage and a very nice position as well. He is, I don't want to say outplaying Magnus because he hasn't been completely outplayed yet, but at least he is putting the pieces on slightly more comfortable squares and, you know, just creating things to think about. All right. Bishop c2 back. Now the bishop goes back. Queen h5. You are really getting the sense here that bad stuff is brewing in the Carlsen position. Knight to g4 is a defensive move. Hikaru plays rook e8. Rook c8 might have been even more nice, but rook e8 is a very natural move. Rook e2, of course, would be resignation. So you have to give away your bishop, and now the guy just has a very nice position. He has long-term attacking prospects all against your king. Both his rooks are about to have open files. Position is absolutely amazing. But what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? These two are the best defensive players in the world. On any given day, they're both the best, or one of them is the best. How do you beat one then? All right? How is Hikaru going to put away Magnus, who is one of the best defensive players in the world, and he very well could be the one today? G3, kicks him out, and before you know it, White is doing completely fine. All of the initiative is gone, and Magnus has double Hikaru's time. How did that happen? A few moves ago, it was minus 0.7, minus 0.8. Well, Hikaru could have maybe capitalized a little bit better. He had some better options, like maybe knight to e2. But the way that this played out, instead of rook d8, which was sort of kind of a waste of a move just from the perspective that you were going to have to trade the rooks, maybe declining the trade and going this way. But Hikaru more than happy to kind of get a game where there are plenty of chances. But watch this. Watch this. From this position now, Hikaru proceeds with less than 2 minutes on the clock to still launch an attack against Magnus. Bishop b4, bishop d2, bishop c1, and he's winning. He completely outplays Magnus, like even stronger than before. He has his biggest advantage of the game. Bishop d4 can't be stopped. Knight f4, that's just a free pawn. Hikaru's just a pawn up. Goes queen c6. Magnus declines the queen trade, and here the computer is screaming for blocking the bishop, the queen check with the bishop, and it's as big as -3 of an advantage. Bishop c8 and bishop e5 apparently just winning for black. Hikaru decides, I don't want my king on the back rank, but that one move allows Magnus just enough time to pose a few more problems. Now knight to e2, and here Hikaru makes an inaccuracy. Not really queen e6. There were some other ways to do this, like bishop e6, queen d6, but he goes queen h3, and this is wrong. He needed to start with putting the bishop on the d6 square, repositioning it to this diagonal, and then, and only then, going for queen h3, because now White has knight f4. And even though you can give this check, king h1, and the queen is trapped. So Hikaru had to set up that idea with bishop d6 first. This was his last moment. And here after the game, he even pointed out to Magnus, here Magnus could have played queen takes d5, sacked his queen, and trapped this queen, which is very, very funny. Very funny. And this would have been a draw. But that's the extinguishing of the initiative. Hikaru goes king to e3, and now with the king so weak, Magnus is able to constantly create threats, and even though he was down a pawn for a moment, ultimately the game ends in a draw by repetition because it was going to be way too much of a migraine to walk over here and lose your bishop and then, you know, lose the game. Crazy first game. So we got to play a second one, right? So this is the second and final game of this matchup. Both guys, 30 minutes on the clock. Hikaru with the white pieces, which in freestyle doesn't matter all too much. All right, but let's see. Pawn takes c5. Knight to e6. Attacking the pawn, right? Magnus loves to bring out his queen, by the way, in this format. Hikaru gets his king opened up a little bit. Plays f3, great move. And with f3, you definitely know he's going to be, you know, playing for the center like this. The computer actually likes c4 here first, which is weird. And then b3. It just doesn't even want to move the pawn, but e4. f6. Queen d2. And as early as the fifth move of the game, black is better. Like, that is the weird thing about freestyle chess. The computer is not happy with this setup. It wanted c4 to, I guess, preemptively block this bishop, and then it wants knight to e3 and knight to f5, which I don't even, both of those things are defended. I don't even understand, but that's what it wants. And Magnus puts his knights out. Hikaru goes knight e3. Magnus plays b5. This is ingenious. This is completely brilliant stuff. Understanding that there is a storm brewing over here, and knight a4 with the queen, with the other queen, with the pawns, with the bishop coming soon, is actually very tough. Knight a4, a5. Look at this. Magnus just, all the pieces hang out on the last rank. He just developed knights the rest of the position is able to somehow play itself. I love in freestyle when the pieces dominate without even moving. It's really a strange thing. That actually is very curious to me, but otherwise I like openings. This game gives me a headache. Queen c2. We have a trade. Hikaru moving the queen back and forth, trying to kind of fight off the black position because takes, and there's no knight b2. Here, bishop c2. Look at this play by Magnus. He's going to leave the king in the middle of the board for now. He might castle. What? Yeah. Hikaru was basically going to lose if he didn't do that. This was a devastating attack. Bishop d3 takes, rook d3 was a win. Queen d3, knight b2. Rook b1, there's this. So you have to lose a pawn. So Hikaru has to just go pawn down. He takes on a4. So now not only is he a pawn down, black also has the bishop pair, and the light scores are a little bit weak. But Hikaru knows he has to do something, but he has 3 minutes versus 14. Plays bishop c5, rook c6 is a double attack on the bishop. Not double attack, layered attack. And it looks like maybe some of the attack is gone because there's no way through. g3. Yeah, Magnus is not done. He got the Alekhine's gun, a bulldozer of 19 points of material on the c-file. Knight f4. e6, stopping the knight from getting forward. Knight back to e2. Bishop a7. Bishop finally moves after 20 moves. Knight here. He just removes the knight, the only active piece. Now we have d5, and it's just a matter of time. It is just a matter of time. Pawn takes, the bishop comes back, f3 is hanging. You defend it. Queen b7. This is very nasty business. h6, king is safe. f4, queen b3. Rook c3 is devastating. You have to defend it. Who's going to defend the queen infiltration? I got news for you, nobody. Hikaru goes running. f5, shutting it all down. Queen e5. Disconnecting the queen from the rook and attacking the rook. Queen e6. But the king is safe. There's no more checks on the light squares. Rook e3. Hikaru has to lose material. Queen c2 is fatal. Magnus doesn't even take the rook yet. He's not even ready to take the rook. The queen still makes it into the position. And this is much worse than losing the rook for the bishop. This bishop is meaningless. This bishop is glowing, shining. It's doing skincare. It's eating collagen. This is not a medical channel. None of these statements have been approved by the health administration. Queen e5, rook c6, queen b2. The pawn's promoting. Mate will be on the back rank. The king is still completely safe. And Hikaru resigned. Magnus played his final game of this tournament like a monster. I mean, he played this game like a dementor. Anybody watch Harry Potter? Read Harry Potter? He was a floating black cloaked figure with a skeleton face that sucked all the happiness out of the position. I mean, when you get... The thing is, at any moment, Magnus can turn it up like this. Like 2 cents down Djokovic. There's nothing you can do. Nothing. The play from the baseline, not moving a single piece, putting so much pressure on White's position that Hikaru ultimately had to lose a pawn. Yeah, that's crazy. Incredible game. Magnus locks up 3rd place and $100,000, so basically a Tuesday for him. Unfortunately, he can't play in the final or requalify, so we got a totally different final match. Hikaru gets 4th. I don't know what 4th is. I think it's 60K? 70K? 80K? I don't know. I don't pocket watch. Congratulations to them both. They had more viewers than the final match, which kind of sucks. You know, I feel for these guys because Levon had an incredible tournament. Also, like, their match was covered longer, which was... I was like, there's a final being played, man. But, you know, that's what happens when you're the superstars. But Hans is a budding superstar for sure. And Levon Aronian is a legend. I mean, dude needs no introduction. Let's put it this way. Now, first game. Insanely tense. This was such a tense battle. Hans played a very locked structure. Knight d3, knight d6, knight e5, knight e4. Levon was playing games out here, bro. Look at this. He was copying the entire setup. It's so fascinating. Both matchups realized that their best bet was to copy the opponent. Isn't that fascinating? That both games, despite being totally different structures and totally different positions, mirrored each other. Because they were like, well, the structure just determines that if my opponent does it like this, the best way for me is to actually copy it right back. Hans, though, Hans is always attacking, man. G4 with the knight, with the bishop. Like, he's not going to let Levon copy him here. There's the broken symmetry. Kicks the knight out to the edge of the board. Knight f3, very nice position for white. Now here come the bishops, and now white sort of has the option of where to castle. But the position is still equal. It's so locked that it's equal. I mean, white doesn't really have much of an edge, and black is constantly fighting back. Queen g2, queen g7. You're not castling because you don't know where your opponent is going to castle. You're still not castling. Okay, knight d2. You're still not castling. Well, you're not going to castle that way now. Maybe your king is actually safer in the center. King d7. Oh, I guess that's a fair bet. Long castle. Levon walks the king over. He says, all right, let's escort you to safety. Put you over there. Let's get you. Okay, actually, you're fine on c7. Now we have an opening on the h-file. Here's something to play for. Microscopic victory. Control of the h-file. Rook g8. Hans goes back to e5. Levon goes here. That move was not necessary. Actually, there are many moves here. Even something like a king b7, kind of keeping the tension, is okay. But at some point, white is going to take this knight. When you take this knight, you lose a light squared bishop. They lose a knight, which means you get more powerful on the dark squares, right? And so what ultimately happens after a little skirmish here is white becomes more powerful on the dark squares. But black has a light squared bishop. This is under attack. We're trying to trade the queen and go for an endgame. This is very pleasant for white. And now Hans goes to work. e3. Time advantage 4 minutes to 1.5. I mean, this is typical Hans Niemann stuff. He is now much better against Levon. Rook h8. Now, this is a massive concession for black. No more bishop pair and a really, really unpleasant position to defend. But this is a very nice defensive maneuver. Rook f7 and rook h7. Now, probably you should have just kept the rook on the board. That's really hard to do, though, allowing the, counterplay. But the computer really wanted it. It's very cold-blooded. It's like, keep the rook on the board and use your g-pawn. But this is much more likely to head for a draw, but that is not going to stop Hans Niemann. The thing about Hans, despite his games being dynamic, exciting, combative, confrontational, he's improving at all aspects of the game. And suddenly, in this game, he's going full Magnus. Double passed pawns. He's winning. Now, right here, instead of bishop c7, he needed bishop d8, which is fine. And then right here, something completely crazy happens. Levon goes king e6. Levon goes king f5. And Levon here needed to stop king b5. Because the idea is quite straightforward. King b5, a6. Levon needs to go d3. That would force the king back, then e4, and the game ends in a draw because the king cannot leave the pawns. But Levon went here. And Hans went here. Levon took. And now king b5 is winning. It's winning because king b5, a6 is unstoppable. And you have enough time to get back into the race. It's a little complicated, but Hans didn't play it. He forced the pawn forward, and then he went here, and now the game is just a draw. I think Hans must have thought this endgame was winning with b7, but it's not. It's not winning. The game is a draw. King e3, a6, d2, a7, d1, a8. Both guys have a queen. Nobody can win. Insane. King b5. And I'm not really sure what was missed. Like d3, there is bishop f4. And if king f5, I think even... No, you can't go a6. Oh, you can go a6. You can go a6. Because takes, king f4, you queen with check, which is crazy. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what was missed, but Hans had a chance to put his stamp on the tournament and take a commanding lead in the final. King b5, I'm not sure what he missed. Maybe he missed bishop f4 here. I don't know. Crazy. Absolutely wild stuff. And so now they got to play again, right? d4. So this is the same position, right? This one was d4, c5. This one, d4, Hans goes symmetrical. And it was Carlsen who broke the symmetry in this game very early. In this game, it was the same thing. The same type of d-pawn, c-pawn, but it was Levon as white. And bringing your queen out in freestyle is sometimes very effective because the queen will transfer to a more impactful square. Like knight d6 looks and feels really good, but this is better for white. This knight is very offside. and will come under fire of these pawns very quickly. So it's just kind of interesting. Like, it's just sort of interesting the way, you know, the way it works. Now, f6, queen c3, c6. Now, Hans in this position spent 12 minutes. And he played a very, very reasonable move. But that's already the sign of something going slightly wrong. Levon has 32 minutes on the clock, 31 after that move. Then he plays a4, and already after 5-6 moves, he's feeling it. He's going to get the center, right? Because black gave up a center pawn for a flank pawn, so white's going to have 2 pawns in the middle. And then white is going to commit the king. Bishop f7, bishop f2, knight d2. Hans making necessary preparations. Levon castles. And white's play is putting another pawn in the middle and having a very nice space advantage against relatively passive pieces and pawns that can't really come forward. Computer does not evaluate this as that dire, but it's a very tough position. And this now balloons the lead to +1. The point is, again, computer just wants space. It wants a5. It's not easy to understand these moves. Hans does it like this, which makes a lot of sense. But white is just going for that c5 square, which white controls 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And if b6, everything gets weaker. So Hans goes b5, completely giving up c5. e5, meeting a flank attack with a central strike. Pawn takes a4. Pawn takes knight. Pawn takes knight. You got to get things a little bit complicated here. But Levon is just the master of dynamics, man. I mean, everything is weak. Not to mention, there is a one-way ticket to h7. Just one way. First class. La première, all right, in Air France. Like, I mean, they are going to rub your feet on the flight. Knight b4. Rook e7. He grabs a pawn. The left side of the board is kind of falling apart. Rook c7. And I want to draw your attention to something in case you haven't been paying attention. It's 23 minutes to 1. I am not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and I am not an armchair sportsman. But here's what I'm going to say. Hans Niemann hasn't had a time disadvantage like this in the entire tournament. He bullies everybody on the clock. I don't know what happened in this last game. But it wasn't the Hans Niemann that we've seen. Maybe it was kind of the shock of getting over from that first game. I don't know if he had a chance to kind of analyze it, but crazy, right? Like, I don't know. I don't know what, and Levon just kept the foot on the gas. Now, to Hans's credit, with a freaking minute on the clock, dude pulled off wizardry, man. He had to sack material here. He played queen c3, traded down. The pawn is like almost promoting, but Levon's got 20 minutes, so he plays the one and only move. The rook is hanging, but he pins the rook. I mean, this is a ridiculous brilliancy, but again, the game review thinks that you are not a particularly smart person, which is fine. Of course, the knight is pinned to the rook, and when Hans went here, a beautiful move, rook f7. This is brilliant. I'll give this one a little brilliant. You know, if you take, of course, you lose everything. So here, rook b7 attacks the pawn, and this is the final touch. And Levon finds all of it within 5 minutes. This pawn is too close to the king. This knight is going to get dislodged. These pawns are going to fall, and these pawns are just not important. And Levon just makes sure not to lose anything. Picks up a pawn. He's going to pick up another pawn really quickly. Defends this one. Both pawns are falling. And ladies and gentlemen, Levon Aronian is the champion of the 3rd freestyle chess Grand Slam event. Hans Niemann gets 2nd place. Hans Niemann was a king move away. If he found king b5, Levon did make a comeback against Hikaru. He lost the first game and he won the second. Oh my goodness, I think king b5 is going to give the man nightmares. I mean, this man was inches away. Inches. Millimeters. Centimeters. Shout out to the Europeans who don't know what an inch is. All good. And everybody, frankly. Why am I saying? I always say Europeans. Like the whole freaking world uses centimeters. Crazy stuff. Magnus 3rd. Hikaru 4th. I'm going to be dead honest. I got no clue who finished in what spot. Like, I think Fabi got 5th. Fabi beat Erigaisi on the last day. Yeah, I don't know. The format was very, very confusing. I don't know. You can find all the results online. but the event is in the books. It was an excellent showing from Hans Niemann. Excellent showing. I'm very much looking forward to the next event that he's going to be playing in. And I'm looking forward very, very much, whether it's freestyle or regular chess. I have no idea when the next tournament that Magnus Carlsen is going to be playing in, to be honest. I don't know. Hikaru as well, by the way. It's a weird time in chess. The freestyle tour is something that the players use as a reprieve from regular tournaments. But I once again am going to say this. I'm going to sound like a broken record. There's probably not many people that watch. Like 85 to 90% of people are gone at this point from the video. That's just the retention. So let me know if you're still here. It is a shame. It is a travesty that all of the major tournament organizers, chess.com, international governing body of the game, can't all sit down, have a round table. I don't know if they've tried and failed. All of them. I wish we had a tennis calendar year so that the best ranked players in the world were not skipping tournaments. They had to play or else they would be inactive and they wouldn't be in the top of the ranks. It's, you know, this is the last time we're going to see Magnus and Hikaru in a tournament for like 3-4 months probably. Yeah. And I know, you know, some people think it's because of like viewership, but it's not about that at all. I want to see the best players play. I'm a fan of chess. I watch more sports than I watch chess events ever, live. It's more fun. They happen all the time. It's more action, better coverage. Anyway, that's all. That's all I have for you today. Massive congratulations to Levon Aronian, who is amazing. He knocked out. Probably should have started the whole outro with that. He knocked out Hans Niemann. He knocked out Hikaru Nakamura. He knocked out Magnus from the winner's bracket. Sent him to the loser's bracket. Yeah. Just a glorious run for him. I'm so happy for the guy. Probably like the nicest top grandmaster as well. So, yeah, there you go. Now get out of here.